You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production.
Hello and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I am your host, Ben Wallach. Wow, made it to 30 episodes. This is episode 30 of Secret Sonics. I can't believe it's been well past half a year of episodes every week. Thank you for joining me along this ride and listening every week and your continued support. It's been an amazing 30 episodes and I've learned so much from so many people and have been able to be in touch with so many different people I never thought I'd be able to be in touch with and learn from and speak with, and it's been amazing. So thank you for that. So for this episode, I'm digging deep into the archives. Before Secret Sonics, I was actually part of another podcast with a good friend of mine called Yakir Hyman, and we had a podcast called Jukebox Java, and kind of fizzled out after a few episodes, but it was really fun, and I learned a lot about podcasting then, and we made some pretty cool episodes, actually. So I wanted to share this episode about self-doubt as a musician. We recorded this episode about 3.5 years ago, so a lot has changed for both me and Yakir since then. I've kind of transitioned much more into music production and audio engineering, and also this episode is geared towards musicians, not necessarily audio engineers and music producers and people involved in that side of things, but I think everything we talk about is applicable to pretty much anything in the arts. So I thought it was an episode worth sharing. I hope you'll forgive me for the audio that's not as great as it is today, and I hope you enjoy me and Yakir's conversation 3.5 years ago on Jukebox Java, talking about self-doubt for musicians. So without further ado, here is the show.
We're here to tackle issues facing musicians in a postmodern digital age. And today we want to talk about the issue of self-doubt in the realm of music, in the life of musicians. It just seems to be a theme that keeps coming up in a bunch of different contexts. We see it come from the business side of music, from the performance side of music. I mean, there's no lack of places in art form where there's room for self-doubt, and it's a crippling thing that we want to attack head on.
Yeah. We were just like, Yakir was just telling me yesterday, like, let's talk about self-doubt. And I'm like, dealing with that right now. And he's like, yeah, so am I. And so it's just like, okay, this is perfect. Let's talk about like what's going on. We'll start with what's going on in our heads, but like just talk about all the scenarios that it could come up and maybe ways to have solutions for that so we can move past it, because there's only one way to succeed, and that's to move past your self-doubt.
Yeah, and I think, Ben, you just teed yourself up to start.
I just what?
You just teed yourself up to go into it. I think you should start. I think we should start with ourselves, and
let's just
go right into it.
All right, so yeah. Okay, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ben. I'm originally from Brooklyn. I've been living in Jerusalem for like 7 years. I do bass. I'm a bass player in a wedding band and also in other things. And I have a music production kind of company, which is why it's so easy for us to record a podcast. Woohoo! Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I don't know. I just have... I was asking a friend of mine the other day while we were driving, you know, what can I do to make my service better? Like, why would you come to record by me more often? Or what could I do for you to come record by me more often, for example? And, you know, he gave it to me like super straight. It's like, man, your mixes got to get better. You're great at like putting up the mics, but you need to edit more. You need to chop things up. And I was like, oh man, I'm like doing everything so badly. Like I am not up to snuff. And then I had these masters. Also, my car sound system is like distorting in the bass. So now I can't tell if my bass, like can't tell the references of my mixes in the car anymore. Is the bass actually distorting, or is it just my subs? I know it's my subs, but maybe the bass is also distorting.
Car systems.
Just brain is like on fire. And then I was listening to the masters for like, I had my first like major client in like a few years, a well-known person. I will not name names. And then I sent in the masters, and then, you know, like when people are a little bit like more successful, they tend to, you know, be busy and not get back to you right away. And then just them not getting back to me made me doubt my masters. And like I was like, oh God, I got to back. And then I realized I'm obsessing about minute details of frequencies. But anyways, this is just all this stuff that's going through my head of like, oh man, I'm terrible at mastering, or I'm just over processing everything and I don't really know what I'm doing, and maybe I should send this to somebody else, or maybe I shouldn't, maybe I still need to learn, I don't know. So just millions of thoughts. This is just one example that was literally going through my head yesterday.
That's all from one
And then
day.
I went to the gym and I felt a lot better.
Yeah. That's one day. That's one morning as a musician. That's like not even an expanse of a lifetime.
Yeah,
That's
all
like,
these thoughts on loop for hours, a couple hours, and then bam.
so funny how we can do that.
Yeah.
Like, but those are all valid concerns that, like, you know, come as a consequence of the good, like putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Like doing that, like taking on that client and doing that mix. And
I'm so
doing
happy
that
I put
master.
myself out there. And now, in my mind, I'm like, don't mess this up. This is like an opportunity, you know.
But it opens up a door for there to be an area where there could be self-doubt. So it's like it's this double-edged sword, it seems, where like you do things and you put yourself out there and you try to do work in a certain way for a certain whatever, and then that by virtue of doing something, you're opening yourself up to be vulnerable in some sense and like have be in a space where potentially you could have self-doubt about your
like,
worth or performance or capabilities.
Yeah, there would have been like, if I hadn't taken the client because I was doubting myself, then I'd regret it even more, I'm sure. You know what I mean? But I'm so happy I put myself out there and was able to have this opportunity, and I'm grateful for the people that like helped me get that opportunity. And yet like still like so scared. So
with that one instance, that one situation, what if you could boil down like the self-doubts or like one, like a singular thought, what do you think it would be? If you could do that. If not, we could pass.
What do you mean by like
just like one thought? Is it like, you know,
am I not good enough, or
that? I mean, that would be a statement. That would be like one statement. Or is it, you know, I would hope that. See, that's an interesting statement.
Am I cut out for this?
Those are like,
how do I get better?
Yeah. I'm really happy you brought that up, because those are very definitive, ultimate statements that
interesting
other thoughts can lead to. I always feel like, and I get to that space a lot. Like, am I good enough? Am I good enough? Am I doing okay? And like, the step right before that is more like, you know, is my mix okay? You know, am I a good engineer? Not like, but it always like, for some reason it torpedoes in, and I do this as well. I'm talking to both of us, like it torpedoes into that space of just like your own self-worth as a person sometimes. And it's like really intense when that happens.
As musicians, we tend to put ourselves in our music a lot, and we think our music really represents. I was talking to Yakir about this before we walked in. We were listening to this other podcast called The Fizzle Show, and the
Fizzle
shout
Show.
out to The Fizzle Show. If you guys want to check it out, we'll put it in the show notes. An episode about self-doubt as an entrepreneur, and one of the hosts, Chase, says, you know, I really see myself in the product. I am the product, even though you're not the product, right? So the same thing with musicians. And for myself, I know this applies with everything I do. Like my bass playing, I'm not a good bass player. I'm not good. My mix sucks. Like, I'm a terrible mixer. I am terrible. And this,
I'm laughing because it resonates. Sorry.
It resonates, like, and I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast, which is why we're talking about this,
Yes.
right? Thank you for thinking of the idea, Yakir.
That was joint effort.
Yeah. So this is just like this mental space of I'm not good because my product isn't good is so common amongst musicians, and something that's as touchy as art, I think, especially like music, it's just like, oh man, like people are judging this, people are listening to this, and this like makes a statement, and it's deep, and like, so it's hard to overcome these things, and everybody I know deals with this.
Yeah, I feel like with arts and music, we're always trying. It's just inherently personal on some level, and artists. Let's talk about. I'm just gonna say the word musician because that's who we want to talk about. That's the art form that we do. So let's just say musicians, although it's applicable to all arts. It just inherently is personal. Whereas like if I start a Velcro company and I just want to make a better Velcro,
like
you know,
example.
maybe there's space for, I think it comes from that movie where the guy made the silent Velcro, Jersey State, something.
Oh,
Garden State.
Garden State.
So even in that space, there's room for it to be personal because, like, well, it's an idea that I had, you know, even though it's really just a product that you created, which are two different things. And, but with music and art, like, I drew, you know, I painted this picture, you know, and I want to license it for X amount, you know, or whatever it is. It's like, for some reason, it's just inherently personal because, for some reason, art is just, we feel or attribute depth to art. So even when we're talking about music business and things are cold and we're talking about deals and signing contracts and like, song rights and like all these different things are like, you know, we take 10% off the top because we're managing the band and all this stuff. Like there's so much business around music to keep it alive in a modern day age. But like at the core of it, it seems that there's this personal
still a song. If the song sucks, it's not going to sell.
Right.
Which goes back to self-doubt, but
100%.
Yeah, the music. If the audience doesn't think it's good, basically, you need an audience for art, which is hard to measure, I guess. Like,
right. If a painting
what
is
successful
painted in a forest and there's no one around to see it, like it's, you know, like it's a good philosophical question.
Can it be judged as art?
Yeah. I wonder, like, you know, my wife actually took a great art appreciation course, so we can ask her afterwards. But, you know, like it'd be a definition of art, which you could easily look up on Google, but we're not going to do right now. So we'll look it up after and maybe put the definition of art in the show notes afterwards. But, you know, is it something art because it's created by somebody, or is something art because it's created by someone and then perceived by others and interpreted by a second and third person? Mm-hmm. I want to go into a little bit
because I think a lot of people, maybe some people even listening to this podcast, do music just for themselves and not for anybody else. And that's something to think about. Maybe
I would like to.
I know there are musicians who, like, you know, I play guitar for myself, you know, and like who don't perform.
I would like to talk to those people. I'm very interested in that mindset.
Well, let's think about our audience. You know, like I don't know. I think I would assume that most of our audience are people that go out and perform, and their music is not just for themselves, but I'm sure there are going to be some people that just do the music for themselves.
Yeah, I'd be sure. And this would be a great episode for those people also. Like maybe they're playing for themselves only because the story they're telling themselves is like, well, you know, I'm not good enough to play in front of other people. Like people like when I play, people enjoy when I play. This is actually, I'm going to shift to go into, Ben was kind enough to share some self-doubt that he's having. So I'm going to reciprocate and talk about a few things that, I've been feeling also.
This is a very open space.
Yeah, this is one of the goals of this podcast is to, Ben said something along the lines of create a space to help facilitate growth for a musician community or something of that sense.
Open dialogue also about the issues.
We're
talking about the issues, but we're keeping it funky.
Yeah, like we've heard so many issues come up. So, you know, I'm going to gear this back towards something specific that I'm
let's go back to what
self-doubting
you're
because it plays into why we're starting this podcast. Even.
Okay.
So I recently left a band that I worked very hard to found and pave a way to success for, a band called G&L Project. I worked on for 5 years, slaved tirelessly, did not sleep for a long, long time, getting it to a point of success that it's now... they're more or less extremely successful, at least in my eyes. Again, like not totally at the top, but like we created a space for there to be potential for them to take the Livetronica jam band music world by storm and literally become the top band performing in that space. Like it's not a matter of doubt; it's a matter of the work that wants to be put in. Mainly because I think. Going back to
if anybody doesn't know, they should just like Google Genome Project, and you could see Yakir like busting his ass and playing his butt off.
When the documentary comes out, you'll see more of that stuff. But no, it's really I attribute it to, again, going back to an issue of product and song and things like that. The reason that the band became was liked so quickly, or nidbak, you say in Hebrew. How would you say it in English? I don't know. That gained a following so quickly was mainly because of the music. If you're a band and you're not playing good music, then you know you're not going to get an audience. So Ayel Solomon is the keys player, the main composer, as well as we co-managed and co-founded the band, along with Zachari Oreich, Chemi Soibman came in later, just to give all those guys due credit, especially to Ayel for co-managing all along the way and being the primary songwriter. But I just want to give him credit because the reason that the band is so successful, and that our work together created a successful entity, it was because we had good music, which he wrote. So most of.
Props.
Long story short is I quit that band. That's a little backstory, but I quit that band, and that created a